Hello and welcome to the Passion and Possibilities video series. I am Charlotte Cagny from Birth Essence and I support women to birth confidently. And this series is all about all the different ways you can prepare to have a really wonderful birth experience, things you might not have thought of, things to inspire you. And today we're welcoming Janie Al Alawi, who is an extremely experienced midwife of 31 years. And on the NHS and independent, with a wealth of experience from everywhere, in the UK and abroad. Actually, amazing woman who's done also done a master's, I believe, in improving maternity services, something along those lines. Janie will tell us properly, and doing a PhD. So she's hugely experienced, hugely knowledgeable, and I'm really excited to welcome her today. Hi, Janie.
Oh, thanks, Charlotte.
Yes. So Janie, just tell us a little bit more about yourself and how your passion to support pregnant women began and developed.
I sort of came into nursing a very typical way when I was 18, as it was then. Everybody, you left school and you did something. So I started doing my nursing, and I hadn't really had any aspirations to be a nurse, but, you know, career-wise, there wasn't much else available. I did my nursing, and halfway through the second year, I did my midwifery placement, which was at the local maternity hospital, and this was in Sheffield. And I just thought, wow, I want to be a midwife. So I sort of struggled through the rest of my nurse training, did a bit of nurse experience for 18 months, and then went and started my midwifery training. I was so lucky. I did it in Sheffield at the Jessup Hospital for Women, and it was just amazing. It was the first proper maternity hospital in the country, and it was so old and so well established, but the care was so good. And I'm so proud to say I'm a Jessup girl. So I did my training. I worked with an absolutely inspirational midwife then, Anne Garner, who has sadly died. And she taught me so much about birth that wasn't written down. And this was pre-internet, so our practice wasn't research-based then. It was sort of do one, learn one, teach one. It was you learnt from senior midwives. So the fact that I had such a passionate midwife set me on my little pathway. So I did my midwifery. I qualified. I lived in Sheffield for a while, and then the call of working abroad came. So I ended up in the Middle East for 12 years. Absolutely brilliant. I mean, the midwifery experience I gained out there was truly midwifery. And we had a couple, when I first came back in 1990, a couple of the old women used to come into the hospital with the young girls, and watching them, they were like the old traditional midwives. Some of the things that they used to do were just amazing. Then I returned back to the UK with my baby, and I started working as a community midwife, and I did that for 11 years. But then we started to move away from the woman being at the centre of care, and we started to see processes and paperwork as being more important. So I set up in business as an independent midwife, and that is where I am today. I still have a very small NHS contract, but the majority of the time I'm working for myself.
Excellent. So you're seeing all the worlds and all the places you've been.
Yeah, and I get to travel. That's the other thing. So yeah, it's good.
Yeah. And what do you love most about being a midwife?
I don't know. It's like asking somebody, why do you like chocolate? It's just something that's in you.
Yeah.
It's not a job. And now that I'm independent, you know, it's part of your life. It sort of molds into who you are. Yeah, you're a midwife. I'm a midwife. I'm a mother. I've got other hats as well. But it's just, I don't know why it is that I like being a midwife. It's varied. No 2 days are ever the same. And I think I like the unpredictability. At the moment, I've got my on-call phone here. I'm on call for a woman.
Gets interrupted with no line. It'll be part 2 later on.
See you in a bit. Yeah, so you know, it's just, I don't know, some people say it's a calling. I don't know whether calling is the right word, but it's definitely something that you do out of love and not just to earn a salary.
Yeah, that really comes across as well, because you were my midwife for my third child, and it was one of the things that I loved so much in the antenatal appointments, was how much you were genuinely happy to be at the appointment, loving every moment of what you were doing. It really came across. So it always lifted my spirits, even if I was happy already, it still lifted me, like just the enjoyment you would have as we'd listen into the baby we used the traditional Pina, because my baby like the normal Doppler. He kicked you, didn't he, every time we used the
tried it once, yeah, it's like no.
So we used the traditional one as well, and it was just your delight and joy was really infectious on the, I think everyone's,
you know, people don't realise, but you know, when we're listening using the traditional pin-on, that we're actually listening to the baby's heartbeat. And the ones when we use a sonicade, all we're doing is we're picking up the movement of the heart and transferring that into a sound. So that's not the actual baby's heartbeat. That's
like the echo kind
of. But it's not the sound. So when you actually listen in, and I tell you, every time I listen in, I'm always like, it's really just amazing. It's like that. So yeah.
Wow. Good. Yeah, that was a really lovely part. So what's the difference for you working independently and working for the NHS?
My personal practice, I try to keep it the same. Obviously, when I work for a client, when I'm employed by a client, time is the major thing, and continuity, the continuity of carer. So that is sort of the big difference. When I'm working for myself, I get to know the woman gets to know me, the family get to know me, and we have time. We have so much time. You know, there's none of this rushing 15-minute appointments, 10-minute appointments. Can you tell me your story again? You know, we know the story, so we've just got that time to spend with you and your baby. In the NHS, I don't have that luxury. So, you know, appointments are a lot shorter. I hope that I give the same information to women, and a lot of the time people in the trust always know when I've seen a woman, because they'll come in and they'll say things like, I don't have to do that, do I? Or actually, I don't want to do that, and I know that I can choose to do something else. So, and they'll as Janie spoke to you, and they go, yeah. So I don't think my practice is very different. And when I attend a birth in the NHS, I still practice as I would at home. So very quietly, low rates of intervention. The big thing about the NHS in my practice is obviously paperwork. I'm not really a tick box person, so that's the bit I struggle with, actually. Yeah, documenting and completing stuff. So.
Yeah, I know you still do. It's just not your love bit, is it? You still have to do a certain amount of documentation, but there isn't as much.
Yeah, it is, but it's realistic documentation, and it's not documentation for documentation's sake.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the big thing about it, and it's about choice. And I will just document something, and if you say to me, I do not want this, you don't then have to repeat it to me every single time, you know. So, and that's the nice thing about it, you know, we can have a birth plan, we can write down what you want, and I know what you want, and you don't need to explain to me.
Yeah. So, and I know, obviously, because I've had you as my midwife, we did have lots of discussions about what I might want and why that was important to me, and what we chose, and what was really important to me personally was that the placenta was birthed first, and then we cut the cord, because that hadn't happened with another one, even though it was a long time after. And I think you also brought another important point, that what I love about the way you practice on the NHS, which shows how you obviously, when you're working on the NHS in your bank contract, you have those trust protocols that you must explain to women and keep and so on, but you still do that in such a way that they know that it's a protocol or a guide and they can choose, and that you're kind of empowering these women to know that they're the one who are important. And I've just written a blog post on a similar theme, where a woman came to me and said, I didn't know I could say no. And it was something like an induction for dates. It was something, you know, that there was clearly a choice. It wasn't like an emergency or anything. And so I love that That's what I'd like to see more of, people, women knowing that they can have the choice and really have those discussions. I loved having discussions with you because I knew I'd be heard and respected, and I was getting good evidence on both sides, every side, and then I made the decision that based on that information. So I loved that.
Yeah, I mean that's the big thing about it. They're guidelines, not tramlines, right? And I always think guidelines are like this sort of part, and they come back together again, you know. And as long as you're giving good evidence-based care, you know, at the end of the day, it's not my pregnancy, it's your pregnancy. You are the expert, right? You have lived in your body for so many years. You have grown this baby from a tiny, tiny seed. Right, you know your baby best, and we don't tap into that enough. I think a lot of women, they sort of go into the hospital and almost hand themselves over to the medical staff, who are the experts. You know, they don't know you, they don't know the way you react, they don't know how you feel, they can't tell you. They can do scientific tests on you, but you're the one that knows best. And women always say, you know, if there's something that is not progressing well in the pregnancy, if something's happening, they'll always say, I knew something wasn't right. And it's listening to the women, you know, instead of, if somebody says to me something doesn't feel right, I need to act on it. And even if my scientific tests say everything's fine, I need to really listen to that woman. And I think that's really, really important. And women knowing, you know, if they feel that everything is fine, then that's good, and that's good for me, and it reassures me. But you know, scans, there's always a little bit of a discrepancy. Nothing's 100% accurate, and I think women should know that they are the focus, they are the customer, right? They are the ones that are right. And I don't think there's enough sort of customer care in the NHS, because it's such a big organisation. Sometimes customer care and how people are spoken to is an issue.
It's like a lottery, isn't it? Who you get, who's got those skills, because they've not been focused on as the skills. There's a focus on the clinical skills and less on them. But some people have got it, like you, and as I've met others that have too.
Yeah,
it makes such a difference, whatever's happening, to be treated as a human being and listened to and believed.
Absolutely.
Your concerns taken seriously.
Yeah, absolutely. Can I just say, I keep looking down here. I've got my dog I've left the back door open so he can come in and out of the house. So he's just wandered in, absolutely soaking wet.
Oh no.
And he's just come up and he's just put his head on my knee. So that's what, if you see me looking down and sort of moving, that's because
it's the dog.
We doodle next to me, yeah. Sorry about that. Go on.
Yeah, so I know recently one of the things I'm hearing a lot about at the moment is this push for induction. Certainly locally, there's a lot of women seem to be receiving more and more inductions for various different reasons, and sweeps being offered like kind of like routine, as if, oh, I hear it on the forums, I see people talking about, oh yeah, I'm going to get a sweep as soon as I'm 40 weeks, or as soon as I'm, as if that's not an intervention. And I just wonder what your thoughts were on that and what we could do to change that.
This is really, really, really difficult, right? Because it's to do with evidence and how evidence is presented. Now, there is a very good doula, Sophie Messager, and I think she's Cambridge way, and she was a scientist before she was a doula, and she looks at evidence and she can sort of reinterpret it. The problem is the evidence at the moment suggests that induction at term will prevent stillbirth, which is very logical, because if you induce the baby at 40 weeks, it's not going to go to 41 or 42 weeks. But the impact of inducing babies leads to other problems, and also leads to admission to intensive care and sort of problems with the mother in the long term. So it's not just looking at one outcome, it's looking at lots of outcomes. So everybody needs to sit down and look at personally what evidence says, because everybody's different. Everybody's got a different view of chances or risk. People use the term risk. I like to use the word chance. And I think induction, it is being offered to a lot of women, and we need to step back and say, why is it being induced and what's going on with the pregnancy? So if it's a pure, because we induce everybody at 42 weeks, I definitely think that needs to be rethought. The discussion needs to be had, but then the woman needs to be able to make up her mind. And I think that's the thing that's not happening. Women are not being given alternatives. They're just being told, we'll book you in for induction on this date.
We're told that quite a lot about 40 weeks. It's like it's a given that they're going to want to be induced at a certain time. Let's get this moving. Let's give you a sweep. Let's, like that kind of language.
Yeah. And sweeps are, sweeps are the bane of my life, to be honest with you. I use, now this is my water slide analogy, bear with me because it does make sense. I always say, women say to me, oh, I think I'll have a sweep, and, you know, explain a bit. And I always say, it's like you want to go to the water park. It's the massive water park, and there's a really big water slide. It's world famous. It gives you such a good experience. It is so good. And you think, I'm going to go down that water slide. So you get to the park on the day, you've got your swimmies wrapped up in a towel under your arm, and you stand at the bottom of the steps, because the step's not a lift, and you look up and you think, oh, wow, that's a long way up. Somebody comes up behind you in the queue and starts prodding your back, and they say, come on, get a move on, hurry up them steps. And you think, oh, I don't know whether to go or not. And then the man that's in charge of the queue starts shouting at you, come on, get a move on, because there's a queue building. So you think, okay, so this person's still prodding you back, and they prod you up to the first level. But by that time, you're sort of really uncomfortable, you're not relaxed, you've still not got your swimsuit on, and it's hard work, right? And you're looking at this thing, you're thinking, I don't want to go up, I don't want to go up. So they push you up to the next level. And sweeps are a little bit like that. Your cervix is closed and your baby is not ready to be born. It doesn't matter how much somebody prods and pushes you, okay? All that will happen is you'll have discomfort and you'll start to worry because the process isn't working. You've had a sweep, you should be in labour, you're not in labour, your body's not working. So you start then to think negative things, you start to despair, you're tired because you've been awake during the night with this irregular contractions. So what happens? You get despondence. They say, we'll give you another sweep. Yeah, great. And what happens? Exactly the same again. They're pushing you up another set of stairs. Your body's not ready. You're not ready. And you know what? If you stood on that bit for a little bit, you'd probably think, yeah, actually, I can do this. And you'd go up them steps yourself. Now, if you're at the top of the water slide and you've got your swimsuit on and you're sitting there with your legs actually, you know, where the water goes down, and you're holding on and you're thinking, shall I go or not? And somebody comes up behind and gives you a push, yep, you're going to go. You're going to go faster. You're probably not going to enjoy it as much because you're whizzing along thinking, woo, but you were going to go anyway. Okay, so sometimes you'll have a sweep and people will say, oh, I had a sweep and it sent me into labour. That's because you were actually sat at the top of the water slide at the time. You were ready to go. So that person has brought your labour forward by, what, maybe 10 hours. Will you enjoy it as much? No, but you're still on that water slide. So I always think with sweeps, if we give you a sweep and it works, you are in labour anyway. You're going to be in labour within the next 10 to 12 hours. And if it doesn't work, your body wasn't ready for it anyway. So then you look and you think, what was the point? If you had taken your time to go up the steps yourself and you'd looked at the view on the way, you'd probably have enjoyed your labour or your ride a lot better. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's a great analogy. It's definitely a great analogy. I think it stimulates one part of your body sometimes, doesn't it? So you can have like contraction-y feelings, but they're not doing anything, or they're going against, like the rest of it hasn't moved, so it's like a hard wall, and then you're comfortable for days while the body waits to catch up. Like you've left your legs at the bottom of the slide, you've got your arms at the top.
Yeah, labour is not the cervix opening. There are so many other things that are going on with the body, and the baby has to get into a position. If we try and start labour off when your baby is not in the right position, it is going to make your labour longer and harder, okay? And it's like putting a key in a lock. You know, once that baby's head and the pelvis go in at the right angle, labour will start. But if we're trying to force that baby, the labour to start without the passenger being ready, because, you know, labour isn't just a process that your body does, your baby's an active participant as well, then it just isn't going to work, and you're going to get your body trying to go into labour and your baby's just not ready, so the position's not good, so it doesn't work. And labour's not just your uterus, it's what goes on up here as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's not enough trust in women's bodies and how they work and the process of birth itself to just wait, and focusing on risk and inducing because of a certain date, for example.
Yeah,
it's kind of a bit bewildering to me when I've waited every time or not done that they're not trusting that birth is an ordinary physiological function.
Yeah, absolutely.
Generally, and you know, when you get your head out of the way when it works.
We're healthier now than we've ever been, you know, with our diet, nutrition, housing, clean water. You know, why are we having so many problems? And it's because women are told there's problems, and women are told, you know, that there's issues. You know, we haven't seen
transfers they don't have. If I take my own example, I'm quite big with Musa, my third, right, compared with the others, and he was a bigger baby. But everyone was going, wow, you're big. It's the first thing they go, hi, wow, you're looking enormous. Whoa, look at you. And they carry on like this. And I'd be going, shit, well, I was feeling quite good. And then I'd come to you and you'd look at me and go, well, you look like a healthy pregnant woman to me. Yes, you have a nice big belly. That's because you're 30 whatever weeks pregnant. You don't look like pathologically wrong, you know, essentially. And you would really reassure me. And then you would feel him, and we felt, and we were guessing the size. You were actually spot on, but you didn't tell me at the end because he did become bigger than we thought. And you knew that that might put me off because of what everyone was saying, not because of what my body was capable of. He was, I don't know in kilos, I'm £9.6. And you'd actually guessed £9.7, and my others have been £7.10, and I'm not that large. I didn't know how big he was because I hadn't had any scans to give me a right or wrong or accurate guessing information. So I knew he was bigger than the others. I knew that. I knew he was big. I knew when everyone was saying he was big that he was big, but it wasn't too big. And that was the implication from all these comments. And then he just came flying out, as you know.
Exactly. He was the perfect size for you.
Yeah, he was fine. He's still big and strong, and that's how he is. And I felt slightly more pressure as he came out from his size, but it didn't feel. I remember there was one bit where you said, wow, you just went whoosh like that and opened, because it really kind of round, almost like that balloon demonstration that's online, where it just went round at the right moment with the contraction. I really felt how it could just open, like almost like when you open your mouth or you open anything else, you don't think you can do that. It stretches, and that's what happened. And it was really amazing because I could feel it. I couldn't see it, but I could feel it.
Yeah, I could see it. Well, I couldn't actually see it, but I could see it, but not see it, if you know what I mean.
As well, wasn't it? It wasn't like some, I guess, go slower. There's different speeds. Everyone's different. I've never had the head out and waiting for the next contraction experience. They've all just come straight out at you. That's what my kids are like, straight at you. So what else would you say to women to inspire them with confidence and joy about birth?
Oh, it's be with like-minded people. It's find your tribe. So you need to engage with people that are positive about birth. You know, everybody's got a story to tell, and sadly, you know, they're usually negative stories, because there's very few people, you know, it's lovely when people want to talk about positive birth and talk about wonderful births that they've had, because all we hear is negativity and, or, you know, thank goodness I was in hospital. And sometimes I say, step back. Did the problems occur because you were in hospital and they solved the problems that they caused? So, you know, it's just be amongst people that are positive, read, listen. It doesn't matter where you get your evidence from. If it's evidence that you believe in, you know, I'll produce the best evidence that I can find, but women will come to me with other evidence, and that's absolutely fine. You know, if you read it in a forum, people's experience of birth is very relevant. Obviously, just because it's happened to one person doesn't mean to say it's not going to happen to you or it will happen to you. But you know, look at it. It's such an opportunity to find yourself as well, because a lot of people don't sort of realise about their body and how it works. So pregnancy is an ideal time to find out all about how you work, and just really, it's such a precious time to sort of really pamper yourself and look after yourself and be kind to yourself. I think that's a thing, and I think sometimes our expectations of what we can do, we need to slow down. So when I first started my training, women would stop work at 28 weeks. And now women are working right up till the day they go into labour. And I think sometimes that's not good, because in the last trimester, any stress hormones do sort of transfer over to the babies. And I wonder if we're now seeing the reason babies are not more alert, but sometimes harder to settle, is because of that last trimester of pregnancy where women are stressed over work. So babies come out wired, and they come out and you see they come out and they're looking around and they're hyper alert. And I think it'd be nice those last few weeks of pregnancy if women can start to slow down, take time out every day to be with their baby, you know, to sit and listen to music together, to sort of, you know, not pregnancy massage necessarily, but stroking their bump, engaging with their baby, talking to their baby, and really connecting. That's nice.
Yeah, excellent. That made a difference to me when I was pregnant. Yeah. And you've travelled widely, haven't you, with to different cultures, and what kind of things have you learned from your travels and seeing how different cultures approach midwifery, or any experiences for us?
It's quite funny, because I worked in the Emirates and I went out there in 1990, and as I say, I met traditional birth workers. There was one old lady that would come into the hospital and sort of check you out for your practice before you were allowed to work with the local women. And if she disagreed with you, then words would be said to the head midwife, and you just wouldn't be allocated to look after the local women. And so they were still birthing. Hospitals were new pretty much, because most births prior to the establishment of the Corniche in about 1985 were done at home. So when they started coming into the hospital, it was quite alien for them to be on the bed. So a lot of women wouldn't want to be on the bed, but of course we were midwives and we knew best, so they would agree and they'd get onto the bed. So a couple of times I'd go into rooms and women would be labouring off the bed with this old woman, and it'd be quite interesting to watch sort of how I'd see a lot of like pelvic pressure and things, which would sort of give some relief to the women. And I saw once a young girl who had got a good sized baby on board, first baby, wasn't progressing, and she'd been pushing for a good hour and a half, and I went to tell sister, you know, we've got failure to progress. And I came back into the room and she was on her hands and knees hanging onto the top of the bed, and this old midwife was on the bottom of the bed and she was banging her forehead on the back on the woman's sacrum, and it was just this thud, thud, thud that I could hear. And then 2 seconds later I looked and the head was there, the head was crowning, and it was like, wow, this is bad. I mean, I've never done that and I've never seen it again, but it was something that old midwife
knew to do,
and that head just descended. Absolutely. But of course she changed position as well, so she was kneeling.
She's gone into the position.
So that was one thing that I sort of took away. And also they used to use a lot of herbs in the postnatal period and a lot of food, that was quite traditional. So that was interesting. When I went out to Angola, that was interesting because women just don't birth in hospital there unless there's a problem. So I was talking a lot of the tribes that the family that I worked for, I was quite interested, and the women went off to birth alone and then would come out with the baby. But again, they had postnatal traditions, and the women were sort of not excluded but kept safe. And in a way, being kept separate means you're not exposed to any infection that's going around as well, and it gives you a chance to rest, so you're not having to do anything. So everything was done for the woman, the food was brought to her, she had help with the baby. So those are things that I think are really good, which we should be looking at in the UK, because postnatal care is terrible.
Yeah.
Women are expected to have the baby straight out. Oh yeah.
You just can't physically. I mean, you can, but it's a forcing thing, because it's not the natural thing to do. I remember my third, I just stayed in bed for a long time. I'd get up and potter.
Yeah.
Back. Oh, you came back, didn't you? Next day I was in the same position on the bed, like I've just given birth.
I was in bed. I was thinking, oh, I hope she doesn't get any deep vein thrombosis in her legs, because she's not getting out of bed. But this is what we need, is that postnatal. And half the problem is, if you're in hospital, then you're discharged after 2 hours or 6 hours. You've got that journey home, and by then you're out of that little oxytocin bubble, and it's difficult to get that back again.
Especially if you've not got the support set up at home. If you're going from hospital to home, it might be like, oh, I'm going home, and you get home and you're like, oh, and you've got the support, but if you haven't got it, you're going home to have to work hard
yeah. You've got everything. You've still got the house to run. You've still got the meals.
Load. Is everything done or not? And, I think it's also an interesting point. You said that the woman had been pushing for an hour and a half, and the traditional midwife in the first story, the one that bangs the head, she must have realised that, well, that's a long time to push, and she'd encourage, she'd change position. She was doing a technique, but she wasn't panicking and throwing her into a cesarean after an hour and a half pushing. And I know some the guidelines are an hour of pushing, or so.
Yeah,
It's quick to intervene rather than use other techniques that, like those ones you've seen. And I know there's rebozo in other areas of helping to the baby's position if he's not in a good position. That we just lost those skills.
We have a lot of it is positional with babies as well, getting the mum and the baby into the right position, the right place. So rebozo is really good. Getting women to, at home births, we've always got women going up and down the stairs. That seems to be a really good trick that seems to work really well. That jiggling of the pelvis just helps that baby to come down and rotate. So going up and down the stairs, that's something that's very easy. We don't seem to see it as much in the hospital, because you've got to take the woman out of the room, along the corridor, through the double doors, through the lift, and then onto the stairwell. And of course, then if it does work and that baby descends really quickly,
you're in the stairs.
You're in the stairwell. So
let's bring a little step in and have them doing a step class with some music.
Well, that's the thing. The other thing is to look at, well, what can we do in the room? And one of the things sometimes is like the racing start, which is like, if you imagine you're running a race and you're sort of on one knee with one leg up, that's really good for helping to get them to reposition. So you can take the aspects of doing the stair and actually do it kneeling. So it's like a running start, and that can help as well. So, but stairs are wonderful. There should be stairs, or like the stairs in the physio, that you go up 3 and then down 3. I could do with them on delivery suite.
Were you able to talk to any of the traditional midwives, like the one? Was there a language barrier? Or were you able to talk for them to share any of their skills when you were in wherever you've been?
The Emirates ones disappeared very quickly, and it's awful there now. I hate to say, it's just become medicalised. Section rate 50%. When I went, we had a section rate of like not many, because women did not want a cesarean. Women would not consent to cesarean. No. They were very vocal about it. And it was midwife-led birth. The doctors were there, but we had a very low section rate. We had a very, very low epidural rate. I mean, I only looked after one woman with an epidural. Women just didn't need epidurals. We had a very, very low section rate, but then it's crept up with all the other things. And sadly, it went from a British-run hospital to an American-run hospital. And that's when we just mirrored what's going on in the States. And I look and I think, for a nationality that 40 years ago, everybody was birthing at home, to a nationality where everyone is birthing in hospital and 50% are having sections, it's no good for the health of the nation. And I know it's a really thing that I'm really passionate about, bringing home birth back to the Emirates. It'll be that'll be on my tombstone.
Well, let me know when you do some projects with that, and I'll see what we can do. What I can do with you.
It's so hard. It's such a recent thing, and changing things that are recent. You think, oh yeah, it's dead easy. People can remember, but people don't.
There's a big system behind it, isn't there? There's a big,
and it's money. It's all down to insurance and money, and unfortunately, the people that are running the way we practice in the background is insurance and it's money. So.
Yeah. Whew. Speaking of money, one of my questions on here is, I know you work as an independent midwife, and there's a big difference in the UK. Obviously, we have the right to home birth and to on the NHS, and obviously one of the challenges of that is continuity of carer all the way through. But we still have the right to choose that. I know it's not legal in everywhere in America, and different countries have different rules, but in the UK we can, and we can have any kind of birth we choose. We've got lots of choice in that respect. But as an independent midwife, you have a cost, obviously, you have to pay. So what would you say to women who are thinking about hiring an independent midwife, and maybe they're hesitant about the cost, or they have other concerns when they say, well, I can just go on the NHS and have a midwife, why would I want an independent one? What would you say to them? I know what I'd say, but I want to know what you'd say.
Money's always the hard thing, isn't it? You know, in an ideal world, everybody would have an independent midwife, everybody would have the continuity of carer. Money wouldn't be an issue. But I always sort of say to women, I'm very flexible. I value my worth. I think I do a good job. I'm not cheap, but I'll do skill swaps. I need a new kitchen at the moment, so if there's a kitchen fitter that wants to come and fit my kitchen, I'll get the kitchen. They just need to come and fit it and do everything, and I'll do their antenatal care. So I'm always open to people suggesting things, payment plans. But I also sort of say, well, you know, if you've got married, how much did you spend on your wedding, right? An independent midwife is much cheaper than your wedding day. So, you know, instead of having wedding presents, you could ask for contributions towards my maternity fund. When you have a baby shower, instead of having lots of presents, you could ask for contributions. I've had somebody contact me recently about doing a birth session for them, a birth plan and antenatal education as a present for the baby shower, which is a lovely idea. But, you know, I feel bad that I have to charge, but then I have to pay my water bills and my council tax and all the other bills. And unfortunately, it's a service that I offer.
Yeah. So I would say exactly what you've said. And if you're feeling drawn to an independent midwife, particularly for the continuity of carer, and also perhaps you have a pregnancy that the NHS is, and you want to do it differently. So, you know, maybe you want twins at home, or maybe where you live, you don't like your NHS, because there are wonderful midwives on the NHS as well. But it's all balancing, and I'd love it if it was all caseload midwifery throughout the NHS and the independent midwives, and we could all work together and everyone be paid appropriately, including the midwives in the NHS. You know, like, it's a really skilled job, and if we could all have those skills, because a lot of independent midwives are often the repositories, the last place where all these lost skills are found, because you often deal with the cases that the NHS are putting pressure on. So, oh, twin birth at home, or we can't allow you to do this, our protocol is this. So then the woman says, but I want to do it a certain way, so they come to you, or a breech birth, even though that's supported officially in the NHS, sometimes they come to you so they can do it at home or their way. And there's all these skills that you have, the confidence that you have to support a woman in her choices. And for me, with the cost, it's like, I love what you just said about maternity fund. I think now, and when I got married, and well, I was already pregnant, so I didn't have much time, but people when are planning marriage usually know if they want children. It's usually been part of the discussion, because you don't want to get married to someone who doesn't want kids and you do. It's a disaster. So you usually know. So at the point you start saving for your wedding, you should be saving for a maternity fund at the same time, and maybe change something in your wedding could save that money. I know there are some who genuinely don't, and then that's where there's, you know, all friends and family can help and see what you can do. So ask the questions, see what you can do. But the maternity fund, like, what a great idea. But save, like, people save for their children's education, they save for this, they save for that. But giving birth, you remember it forever, don't you? And it sets up how your child is, how your pregnancy, how you feel, how you are as a woman. And yeah, I love that.
It was when I started my training on my first day, my tutor said, she said, how you speak to a woman in pregnancy will stay with her for the rest of her life. If you're kind, or if you're not kind, if you're horrible to her, she'll remember that, and they do, it colours the rest of your life. And the skills you learn in pregnancy that carry you through for the rest of your life as well, you know, when we talk about sort of relaxation and coping techniques, they're ones that you can carry through forever. And you know, once you've had a baby, you are superwoman. You know, you can do anything. So I think that's really important as well, you know, that pregnancy is important and we need to celebrate it.
I'm just checking if we've covered all of our questions or not. Oh, we probably have. What do you find awe-inspiring about women giving birth? Is there anything you'd add? I know we've said some things.
It's just every single time I am just not amazed, because I know women can do it, so amazed isn't the right word, but I am just so like in awe. I was like, oh my goodness, look at that baby. And afterwards, when we do the baby check and I go through it with them, I say, gosh, look at those fingers, look what you've made. You know, this is absolutely amazing. When we look at this baby and we think, you know, what it's come from, just amazing. Amazing. And every single birth, I'm always the same. And I know I need to tone it down, but I'm always excited. I went to see my client last week and she's having her first baby, and I said, oh, by this time next week we might have a baby. And like, you know, we were all, and I was like, why am I so excited? I've been at hundreds of births. Why am I so excited? And because I've never been at her birth, right, or this birth, and each birth is special. Okay, and I think the time that it stops being special is the time to give the job up. You know, whilst I still get this extreme joy out of it, then, oh, I've got a very wet dog just coming now. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh, you'll believe it. Yeah.
So I think we've touched on a lot of this, but if there was something that breaks your heart that you would like to see change for women becoming mothers today, what would that be?
That is, I just don't think women are listened to, and that's what makes me so sad, is when women just don't know that they can say no. You know, that is the saddest thing, is that they go into the hospital and they just don't know that they have choice. You know, that there's always more than one option, and I hate it, and it makes me so sad when women go into the hospital and they're given one choice. You can do this, we'd like to do this. They don't tell them you can do this or you can do this, and that's the thing, it's choice. And so many women don't know that they have choice, and it's only afterwards, maybe, like you said, oh, I didn't know I could do that, or I didn't know I had to do that, that it's just not out there. Women just don't know. You know, a lot of women don't know about independent midwives, and I just think it's just so sad.
I've spoken to women, husbands who didn't know they could have a home birth. They didn't know that was a possibility, and I'm like, how can that, you know, a third or fourth child, and they didn't know that they were allowed to do that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And so then, you know, it's a bit late on in the day, there's a couple of them that would have considered it. Had they had a midwife like you, they might have considered it when it's the third or fourth baby and it's going to go fast, and they know, and you know, they just didn't know. And definitely about the listening.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would also like to see that. So if there was one thing that you would like women listening to take away today and take to heart, what would that be?
Right, and I was looking at this and I was thinking about, oh, what would I say? There's a midwife who died recently, Mary Cronk, and she was absolutely amazing midwife. She supported me at the home birth of twins remotely, because she lived down in Poole. And I'll just tell you a little story about Mary. Mary was a midwife in the 50s, and she had an interview with the nuns at Nonata's house in London to do the second part of her training. And apparently there was a sister Evangelina. She was a real nun, and she was driving Mary back to the train station late one night, and they were caught speeding as they were going through the Blackwall Tunnel. And the policeman came out and he stopped them and he said, oh, good evening, sisters, where are you going? And they said, we're on a mission of mercy. And Mary sort of says, oh my goodness, how can you say that? And they said, but you are going to be an angel for women, and just you are on a mission. And sometimes I think I am on a mission. I'm certainly not on a mission for anybody, you know. I'm on a mission for women. It's something I feel passionate about. But Mary's legacy, I think, lives on in a lot of midwives, that we are doing service, we are working for women. And she said, some women need some help with some labours. It is not a failure to need help. We all need help at times in our lives. And I think birth is a beautiful process, but sometimes it does need help. Okay. And that's why I think, you know, whilst I'm an independent midwife and I support women, sometimes I do need to step in and help. But I'm always the last line, not the first line. Women can do this, and women have done this for thousands of years, you know, without midwives and doctors. And you know, just saying to women, you can do this.
Yeah, wonderful. I'd love to see women find that belief again, hear that in you, and
yeah, you can do this. And that's the thing. The thing is, midwives are there for a reason, but women can do this. And that's why, you know, you'll often see me at births now. The girls, you know, laugh when they watch me working in labour, because I'm either asleep on the settee, but I tell you, I'm never asleep. Right? I'm always listening. But if a woman sees her midwife with her eyes closed on the settee, she's reassured, right? She looks and she thinks, there's nothing to worry about. Everything is going well. If you start fussing and I start panicking, the woman's going to think something's wrong, something's not right, what's happening? And once you let that little bit of sort of doubt get into your mind, it sort of escalates. Whereas if they see the midwives relax, in the old days, the midwife would sit knitting. Now I'm more likely to be sitting looking at my phone or just sitting quietly listening. They will see that I'm relaxed. They will know that all is well, and they will labour faster. So I think that's quite important.
Yeah.
For midwives to know.
That's hugely important. Just for me, I'm thinking back, like I didn't need help, but it was still great to have you there because it calmed my husband down.
Yeah.
I've written a post where you feature for people listening about the story of my third child. I'll tag it under the comments, and it is Janie, my midwife, who's the midwife in the story, and she talks to my husband at one point just briefly. But just your presence, your delight, your joy, your enthusiasm, your love, and your trust of birth, that suffuses the whole atmosphere around me. That wherever I'm going in the labour, when you can go through scary emotions, scary moments, or it can feel big, the power coming through, the container for me is this trust and strength of someone there who knows I can do it, who can see from the outside. And you're not in it in the same way with me. You're with me, but you're not in it completely gone in labour land. So you know that something's wrong or not as well, and I wouldn't. But the whole atmosphere is together, like just this steadiness, and it's.
But I didn't do anything. That's the whole point. I didn't do anything.
What you did when you didn't do anything was doing a lot. It's the non-doing. It's so
that's what I mean. Yeah, that's what I mean by sitting on the sofa.
You put a towel under me, I think. And you said to my husband, come and sit here.
Yeah. I can remember getting him
in the labour, so he wanted to stroke my shoulders and I didn't want him to touch me, and you knew I didn't want that at that point. That wasn't the right thing, because you're a woman and you know, and you're a midwife and you know, and he didn't. He just wanted to support me, and he wasn't sure. So you said
he didn't know what to do.
Didn't know what to do, and he wanted to help, and you said sit here, and then I can feel him wanting to help, and everything's fine, and I can ignore that then, and this is nothing for him to do at that point, which is hard for me.
I remember that. I remember getting him, pulling him, saying, come and sit down next to me and watch. And,
it's just the invite with that joy, and he was like, oh yeah, that's okay, because he trusts you. He called you for him, actually, in that moment, because he wanted to know that everything was okay, because he knew that you were the midwife, like the expert. This is a very important thing, having you in the room reassured him that, you know, I didn't need the reassurance because nothing was going wrong. I might have done if something had been going wrong. I would have then needed your expert skills if something had been missed. So I would have been reassured, but because there was nothing wrong, I didn't need that, but he did. It really helped everyone to have fun, a lot of wonderful fun.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Good.
Oh, so it's been wonderful interviewing you, Jamie, and
Thank you.
we went off on one again after ending on the make sure women are listened to, that we might need help, but you can do it, was the end message. Believe in yourself.
Absolutely. Women are amazing. Women are just brilliant. It's just, you know, it's what our bodies are designed to do.
Yeah. And it's been a privilege and a pleasure to have you on here today, Janie, and I'm so happy that we made it onto this interview, and so thank you very much.
Thank you for asking me. It was very much an honour to serve you, so I'm very pleased that I could come along and talk to you today as well.
It's been a great conversation. I'm sure people get a lot of benefit from it.
I hope so.
Yeah, well, we'll ask for some feedback when it goes live.
Okay, no worries.
Yeah.
All right then.
Okay,
See you soon.
See you
All
then.
right. Bye. Bye.